Hello, I'm Jo, and welcome to the Midlife Entrepreneur Podcast, a new show that's all about building a business in midlife. My guest this week is Abigail Wilmore, an accomplished HR leader, executive coach, speaker, and the founder and CEO of PeopleFlow, a community for people professionals focused on creating positive change for people and organisations. With 25 years' experience in the luxury industry, she's held Chief People Officer positions at Tom Ford Fashion, Stella McCartney, and Dr. Barbara Sturm, to name a few, and describes herself as a super connector with a passion for heart-centred leadership. Having started her career on the shop floor, she worked her way up until she discovered her passion for human resources. I knew I'd find my calling, she says. My fascination with the psychology behind why people want to do a good job and what makes the right company culture to enable them to flourish became part of my life's work. With workplace culture at the forefront of so many business agendas right now, I can't wait to learn from Abigail's expertise and experience. So let's go to the conversation, which we recorded just before Christmas last year. Abigail, welcome to the Midlife Entrepreneur.
Thank you. Very happy to be here.
If we were sitting down having this conversation 10 years ago, what would you be doing?
10 years ago, I would have been 40, so I turned 50 this year. I would have been deep in actually trying to have a baby and deep in my career, just loving building my career.
And where would you have been working?
I would have been still at Stella McCartney, where I spent a lot of my career at Gucci Group and then going into Stella McCartney in 2014. So yeah, that's where I was. Phenomenal brand and amazing dream job for a really long time.
It's really fascinating, your career, because I looked back over the research. You came from the shop floor, which I always think is the best training ground for leadership and for understanding people specifically.
Yeah.
Didn't go to university and went straight into the workplace. So talk me through how you get to such a high level from starting there. When was it that you realised that HR and people were the kind of focus for you?
Yeah. I originally thought I was going to be a ballerina. And then when that didn't work at about 16, I knew at 16 that I wasn't going to be good enough to be a prima ballerina. And so I didn't know what I wanted to do. And found myself in retail. My mother is a makeup artist and my grandfather. And so I went to work in the perfumery in cosmetics for Estee Lauder. And then after a few years, I realised that the things that I was learning or enjoying the most about the shop floor were the teamwork part of it, understanding why people want to come and do a good job or not, like really getting into sort of behaviours on the shop floor. And that's what was interesting me. And so a job came up in HR, actually at Estee Lauder. And so a manager suggested that I apply for it. And so I did. And I started at the bottom in administration. Really, HR was personnel then, so there was a lot of paper and admin. And very quickly I knew this is where I want to be. And there's actually a lot of transferable skills from the shop floor to HR, and also even from a client experience perspective to an employee experience perspective. So there was a lot of parallels. And I just worked my way up. I ended up going back to uni. I say back to uni because it was a thought of mine, but much to my parents' horror, I decided not to go. But actually, I probably would have done arts or English, which wouldn't have been as helpful to me. So I ended up studying HR, and that kind of really gave me a lot more confidence and obviously all the theoretical side of HR and the fact that I was doing the job as well. I had the practice. So I ended up getting my master's degree at evening school, which was difficult. But it really helped me. Not necessarily from the knowledge perspective, although I'm sure that did help as well, but more just the confidence that it gave me to understand that this is actually really interesting. I did management development, so HR with a focus on management development.
Wow. And did you choose to do that yourself, or was it something that was suggested that would really help you accelerate the process?
Oh, that's a good question, actually. I at the time, the CIPD, which is still a really important kind of governing body of HR, was really, you had to be CIPD qualified. And so I started by just researching what I would need to do to become CIPD qualified. And I had already enough experience, a few years of experience to try an undergraduate degree. There's lots of different, obviously, courses you can do as part of the CIPD. But I went to enroll, and I actually enrolled I was queuing for hours, and then I got to the front and realised I'd been in the wrong queue. There's actually the postgraduate diploma that I'd been queuing for. And she said, because you've already got 3 years experience, why don't you try the postgrad diploma? Yeah, I didn't have a bachelor's degree, obviously, and it took me 4 years to pass it. But yeah, it was really fascinating. And obviously I was meeting a lot of other people in peer groups and kind of other people in HR. So I learned a lot from doing that. So it wasn't necessarily a plan, but it became a really important part of.
And you actually highlight a really important point, which is that we can step into education at any stage of our careers, and it can be really fruitful because actually having experience, having been in the workplace rather than going straight from school to university, which is the normal pathway. When I retrained, I really felt like, it was my choice to do it. So it wasn't something that I was having to do because we had to tick a box and choose to go.
Yeah.
It was something that I'd chosen to do, and I was amongst, like you say, peers. And I was learning something that I was genuinely interested in.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that it's just a different path, as you said. And yeah, definitely art would have been a wonderful 3 years, I'm sure, but it wouldn't have necessarily furthered my career. Who knows what would have happened? But it definitely felt like a turning point for me. Becoming qualified, not only the confidence, but also just, having the qualification, having the kind of validation as well was important to me.
So then scrolling ahead, and
Yes.
I know we're missing a massive chunk of the ladder up to success. Describe what it's like being in one of those kind of you were chief people officer, really high level position in an enormous company like Pairing Group, Gucci Group. Describe what your day to day is like.
I think a lot of people say this, whatever career they're in, but every single day was different. I knew as well being in a creative environment was really an important part for me of enjoyment of the job because of the added drama, and you never know what's going to happen from one day to the next. So working with creative people and just, I guess, the artistry of fashion was also something that really drew me to the fashion industry. And then, working at Stella McCartney, that was such a purpose-led organisation. To do my role in HR was just brilliant, because if you've got that really strong sense of values and purpose that's driving the brand already, then a lot of the initiatives that you want to do, people are already so engaged with the success of the brand and how to push things forward. So yeah, it was great. And a lot of my role was about putting out fires, as any HR role is, but also being really creative about how we could help people to see how their own purpose and sense of meaning could be attached to the brand and feel a huge sense of being a part of something really big, that you're actually trying to change the way the fashion industry works. And it's much bigger in a way than a lot of other fashion brands that are creating products, beautiful products. But this was really about changing things.
And do you think you attracted people to the brand because of that really clear focus on the values?
I think so, yeah. I mean, you didn't have to be vegetarian, although it was a vegetarian company, obviously. But people who wanted to make a difference were naturally drawn to this company. And just before that, I was working in a group function, and I was able to see the different types of people that would be drawn to working at all the different brands of the Gucci Group. So that was also what really got me excited and fascinated by what are the ingredients that create culture even. And then, what are people attracted to in a brand, and what is going to help them to flourish within that environment, as opposed to just it being the wrong thing. Because a lot of the time in fashion, probably in a lot of industries, people are dropped in and expected to go with it, especially in small, fast-growing, fast-scaling companies. And seeing who would be drawn to working at Saint Laurent versus Gucci, McQueen versus Stella, because they were obviously the two British brands that were growing at a very similar rate as well, and had a kind of similar strategy in terms of store openings and revenue targets and things, but entirely different culture. And so being able to work for both of those brands, it was really, I feel very privileged to have been a part of that.
An amazing insight for you, because all the time you're gathering all this amazing research that you can apply now to the business that you've created. So I know you went on to have a few more really senior positions beyond that, Tom Ford and Barbara Stern. And was there a moment actually in those days where you were thinking, I've got an idea that one day maybe, I don't know, or was it something that came to you later on?
It came to me later on, I think, because we're always so busy. Certainly now I've stepped out, which I know we're going to speak about later, but now I've stepped out of the sense of like being given work, looking for somebody else. I didn't realise that I was in a sort of never-ending cycle, but I definitely was. And it's not that there wasn't time to think, because of course there was, but it wasn't something that I had a burning desire to do until much later in life.
And what was the tipping point that meant that you did step into entrepreneurialism?
Honestly, I think a lot of frustrations with the way that things were. I felt really burnt out as well, like a lot of people in HR and a lot of people full stop during and after the pandemic, that kind of I could start to hear my inner voice a little bit more, because I had to stop, I had to slow down. And that allowed me to think about, what is the next decade of my life going to look like? And what do I really want to do with my life? And where am I getting my own meaning and purpose? And the frustrations of, I don't go too deep in the patriarchy and like systems of oppression that suddenly became extremely visible during and after the pandemic, with the increase in awareness about mental health and all different needs that came to the surface, and also social injustice reawakening after the murder of George Floyd, and all of these really huge shifts that were happening in the world, I think had a major impact on everybody. But for me, it meant I want to look at these things and I want to do something about them that feels more purposeful and more impactful, I think.
And so the concept of being able to drive that yourself gives you more flexibility to be able to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And I was very open to working for organizations that I was going to be able to really live that out within a company. But in the end, it just felt like, actually, I can impact way more companies and people, therefore, if I'm not just working for one brand.
So PeopleFlow was born. I know you've iterated the name a few times, and I love that, because actually we start from a starting point, because you have to start somewhere.
Yes.
But I think it's so important that we allow ourselves the flexibility to keep rearranging, pivoting, changing, editing, and moving as we grow our businesses, because we don't really know when we start.
Yeah, it's so true.
Yeah. And so what were the first few steps like for you, suddenly going, oh, hang on, there's no PAYE here. It's just me. How did that feel?
For me, I was doing it as a side hustle for quite a while. So actually during the pandemic, whilst I was still at Stella, everybody went down to 4 days a week for a period. And I took that extra day to try things out, which I think really worked for me, because I wasn't stepping into it fully, and I still had the security aspect, which was also, I say it's really important, but yeah, it's become less so. But I felt
that was your perception at the time.
Yeah,
right?
it was definitely my perception at the time. So I was trying it for quite a few years as a side hustle. But then the community aspect of what I do really started to grow in the last 18 months. And the community part, which is about helping with, it is really difficult in HR to speak up and shine light on things constantly and bring solutions to systemic issues, which is often the case in the workplace.
Why is it difficult to speak up?
It's difficult because it takes a lot of energy. if you're really passionate about it, which so many HR people are, then it has to be done. Like, it's obvious, and these things become clear, and it's part of the job. It's part of your duty to speak up. But it also does take a lot of energy and a lot of courage, I think. And that's where the different systems of oppression come into play, because there's only so much that you can do within an organization in HR. So the community is really about how can we do all of these really important things and still go home at night and feel okay and not be burnt out in the process of raising these things and trying to find solutions for these things.
So what you're offering is a safe space for people to discuss internal issues confidentially with other experts, where everybody can help offer advice, or we tried this and it worked really well, or why don't you try? Is that what you're...
Yeah,
I love
essentially,
that.
yes, because a lot of HR... So I was searching, the reason it came about is because I was searching for my own, I think, sense of belonging, if I'm really honest, a place where I could talk about things that I had been through. And I found lots of amazing HR networks, but they tend to be about how we can be better at our jobs, how we can have more of an impact, how we can... feeling inspired about how to do things really well. And there is a pressure that comes with that. And I think we need that inspiration as well. But I couldn't find anywhere where you could literally just take off your shiny Instagram mask and talk about the real things that we have to go through, which is, for example, what if at the top of an organization, the behavior and role modeling is really awful and has an impact on the entire company? How can we have an impact still? How can we help people through that? Well, how do you let 100 people go and then go home at night and feel okay with yourself? It's those kinds of things that are so impactful to one's own mental health and state of being. And yeah, we can discuss those things. And it's just so fulfilling. I absolutely love that part. So there's the community side of what I do, and then the consultancy.
You know, it's so emotional listening to you talk about it, because I can really see energetically how connected you are to offering that safe space, that place where we can talk about some of these. And just the two things that you described there, letting 100 people go, or recognizing that there is an enormous issue at board level or at leader level, that you're right. What the hell do you do with that? And and honestly, I work with a lot of companies as well, and I can literally hear people saying exactly, mirroring what you're saying, and saying, how can I actually be a leader if I'm not allowed to lead in the way that I want to? Or what do I do? Do I have to step out in order to pursue things that are important to me? Is that the only way? There are so many questions.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I really recognize in your industry is that since that pandemic, what you do has changed quite dramatically.
Yeah.
Because of course it was about supporting employees and culture and mental health and all that kind of stuff, but even more so since then. And I work with quite a few HR leads, and they're exhausted, often unsupported by the business, often looking after, some people, often you're probably the same, but looking after maybe 150 employees, and there's one of them and maybe one part-timer.
Yeah.
How can that possibly work?
Yeah. Yeah. So much more has fallen on HR's shoulders, which, as you say, was already part of the role, but it suddenly became so amplified and now a critical part of what HR does, which we're not necessarily equipped for. I definitely was not learning that in the early days when I was studying. And a lot of it is about self-learning today and becoming qualified as a coach, which I did, or as a therapist of some description, because those things are really helpful now in the role of HR.
But that's like already 3 hats for one role. It's a massive amount of expectation for somebody to be able to manage. And when I look at the younger employees coming through and what they expect from the workplace, then you have to be all things for all people. That seems impossible.
Yeah, it's definitely difficult. You have to be really good with your own boundaries. And I think what I've seen and felt community with and a sense of belonging is that a lot of HR people tend to be people pleasers. And so boundaries are often quite difficult or need to be re-looked at very regularly to make sure that you are protecting your own energy and your own mental health. And yeah, I think we need places to go, and it's quite lonely actually in HR often. Even if you've got a lovely, amazing team, there's often things that you still cannot speak about, especially in the top roles, but across the board in HR, it can feel very isolating. So that's what I hope the community is providing.
So describe to me what you offer in the community and also what you'd like to offer in the future, because obviously you're in 18 months in.
Yes.
So currently, what are you offering that you're seeing really positive feedback from?
The biggest and most rewarding part is the in real life events that we're having. And it's always centered around well-being. And we're looking at different aspects of either workplaces or generally our roles, but also providing a place for trying out different healers or different modalities that perhaps you might not have come across. And just the sense of community, just being able to speak to each other about the real things that are going on, how to get through them, as you said, and sharing like ideas. And it's not about best practice. It's about how do I get through this and be okay and do it well. And still, so many people love what they do in HR. So it's not that. But to your point, I think with generations today requiring a lot more from their workplaces and their organizations, there's even more of a pressure on it. So it is a place in the community where people can feel pressure free. So we have in real life events, we have in beautiful spaces as well. I really wanted it to feel calm and like it's filling us up.
It's like a treat as well. You're juggling so many balls, it sounds like, in that role. The enormous amount of expectation and pressure, and to go and just be able to let off steam, just go, oh, I can breathe for a second.
Exactly. And so we actually called the last event a mini retreat. Yeah. So in the future, it will be, my dream would be to hire a big mansion in the south of France and take away a whole load of burnt out HR people and have a retreat. Yeah, have retreats. So that would be the dream. And next year we're going to start to hold events in other parts of the world, because right now it's been very London centric. So we have these in real life, we have a lot of online. So we have a platform, which when you join the platform. We have loads of like really human-centered policies on there that you can just download and tailor to your own organization. Lots of video trainings, lots of kind of support. So I've been on my own healing journey for probably about the last 15 years. I wanted to bring more healing, not only to the profession of HR, but to workplaces. So there's lots of healers on the platform, and they've specifically created content to help HR people. So if you are going into a tough meeting, you could do this meditation before you go in or that kind of thing.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And then we have monthly kind of drop-in sessions. Some of them are more roundtable type discussions, and others are where I'm interviewing and meeting with different people, and then others will be a mentoring session, group mentoring.
So I'm assuming the companies are sponsoring their leaders to come and join this community, or is it individually? How is it working in terms of the business model?
So we've got two types of membership: individual membership, which we're trying to keep really low cost, because we are aiming the community at up and coming leaders. But we also have a lot of senior people as well. And I think that's been really lovely as well. And then we have the corporate membership, which is what we're trying to push, because ultimately businesses need to support their HR teams better to be able to support the people in the organization. So that's how we're positioning it. We are like HR for HR. So you can come and tell us everything that you're going through, and we're going to listen and understand, and we get you. I think that's what's been so, what's the word? It's just been really, it's really created a sense of belonging for me.
Such a valuable service. Like you said, that often people pleasers go into roles that are service orientated. Same with coaching.
Yeah.
I would say that definitely somebody who wants to please people, wants to make them happy, wants to hold them up and put them on their journey. So it makes sense that then these people tend to put themselves at the bottom of that list of care.
Yeah.
And so to have somebody come along and say, hey, I'm here for you. Come and join us.
It really does. It really does.
Like the best membership you could get.
Yeah, exactly. But also I find that HR people tend not to advocate for themselves for things like training and resources. And we're often trying to help businesses save money, certainly in the last few years. And so this is a way that, it's not that expensive, but with the corporate memberships, we're also offering coaching, one-to-one coaching. And there's a lot more that you get for the corporate membership. But it's also just a really lovely way to support your people that are ultimately there for the rest of the organization.
So talk me through, you mentioned your healing journey for the past 15 years. If that's not too much to ask, talk me through that journey for you, because maybe a lot of people will be in a similar position where they might be exploring and trying to really work on self-care.
Yeah. So healing journey for me, I've always been introspective and I've always wanted to discover things, I think, about myself. But as I've got older, those you go through different phases, don't you? I feel like I began a phase where I really wanted to understand and forgive maybe some things of the past, that you get to that point where you just want to accept the parts of yourself. So I tried lots of different things, talking therapies, somatic healing, going on different kinds of retreats and things, tending towards female healers and kind of women's circles and those kinds of things, and often with a connection to nature of some description. And then I started to treat myself by going on these things and knowing that, okay, I've got 6 months of hardcore slog at work. And at the end, I'm going to go on a 4-day retreat somewhere in the countryside where no one can contact me. And they don't even have Wi-Fi, so I can't connect with anyone, and just do that. It's been wonderful and difficult and all the things, really. And I've come out the other side, although there's always a new side to come out of, which is also part of why I think we're here on this planet, to, I would say, be the best versions of ourselves, because that's so corny in a way, but to keep discovering ourselves. And I love that about getting older. And turning 50 this year was really defining moment for me and crystallized a whole lot of things and really helped me to step into going full steam ahead with doing my own thing and not doing it as a side hustle. But healing is and continues to be a big part of my life, and where I often find new ways to be creative as well. I think a lot of healing for me is about expressing different emotions, and whether that's anger and finding new ways to channel anger through creativity or dancing, or it's led to a lot of different things for me.
And is that connected to your heart-centered vision? Because you talked about it being a heart-centered approach to HR.
Yeah.
Is that very much connected to this journey that you've...
Definitely. I think that, finding our purpose is such a critical part of being on this planet. And so whether we do that through work or outside of work or a combination of both, people that we meet, I think that being in HR has allowed me the privilege of helping people to sometimes find what more meaning and purpose in their lives, and also having a kind of wider impact on maybe their families by the policies that we write and things. And that's where the kind of heart-centered or human-centered side of what I wanted to create in PeopleFlow really made sense for me.
It seems like it's almost, as you're describing it, it just seems like you were only ever going to end up here.
I think so, yeah.
But then again, you've done the work, and I think this is a really good point that you're making around purpose. I think when people hear the word purpose, they think it has to be something really big, but it doesn't have to be something big. It has to be something that's aligned with who you are. I think that's the really critical part of it.
Yeah.
And that could be changing tiny things. And that can make enormous difference to that feeling, as you describe.
Yeah.
But it does require work.
It does require work, and it does require not being in a hamster wheel, because otherwise you just can't. Well, for me anyway, that's what it's. It does require quiet to hear yourself, and integrating the different parts of myself has been a massive part of it. And as you said, it's not huge. It's small, little steps. And then actually you realise in 10 years or even a year, I've changed so much. But it comes from the inside. And I think it is quite a process.
Yeah, and I think that's really important, the gradual process. We are so used to quick fix solutions these days. And I definitely see that people, they're following people on social and there's find your purpose and passion this weekend, you'll find it. It's just not possible.
No.
And so I always say to people is that you just have to connect back to yourself, start having some presence, start being aware of things, and you trust the process, because it can be frustrating, actually, what you're describing. When I was really exploring what I wanted to do with my next chapter, I spent a good year, possibly, but I wasn't quite sure where it was going to take me. And that journey was frustrating at times.
Yeah.
But eventually it just showed itself.
Yeah.
And then you're like,
yeah.
Okay.
Mm. And I think there's something really feminine about that. There's a feminine power that we have to just take it step by step. And yeah, we don't know where it's going to end up. And actually being able to enjoy this like slower unfolding of things is not the end goal, like, that's important.
So with your approach, would you say that it is something that is going to work for both male and female HR leads? What are you seeing?
Yeah, actually in this country, in the UK, there's just way more women in HR, but not the case in every country at all.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I really don't. It's like marketing and HR are usually the two roles at C-suite that are predominantly female. No.
It's
Maybe
really
it is
fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
I wonder whether it's our education process, in that you see... So my daughter just did maths at A-level, but she was the only girl in her class.
Wow.
And even though we're saying typically more women are doing STEM subjects, potentially they're not. And therefore you end up in the kind of the more human subjects.
More human
and that leads you towards marketing and HR. And
Yeah.
Interesting.
There must be studies about it that I haven't read. But
it's not the case in other countries. That's fascinating.
Yeah, it's not the case in France and Italy. You see a lot more men in HR roles. But maybe it's just slightly more formulaic in the way that you do HR in those countries. And of course, there's the laws here that we have to abide by and help guide organisations to live by. But I love the side of HR that's all about creativity and helping to find solutions that are not necessarily by the book. And I think that appeals to men and women. So we do have some men in our community. We'd like more. But yeah, I think it's not necessarily just appealing to women.
And what's really interesting about that creative view is, of course, that you don't have to have a big budget to be able to be creative and do interesting things, do you?
Totally. It's more fun, maybe, with a big budget. But no, sometimes I think it's actually you're more creative when you don't have a lot of budget. And that's certainly, something that a lot of HR people have had to deal with in the last few years, especially in the industry that I'm most familiar with, in fashion. But a lot of industries are suffering right now.
Yeah, I see. I coach across all industries, and I don't think that fashion is exclusive, although it was hit quite early on because of the pandemic and people weren't buying clothes like they used to. So going back into your business and where you are, early stages in the first 2 years, what challenges you the most about running your own business?
So having only literally just stepped out of corporate life, so it was actually, even though I've had this as a side hustle and the community's been growing, I employed somebody amazing last summer in 2023, and she's been helping me to grow the community. But really stepping out of the corporate world has helped me to see that actually I need to relearn what motivates me, what drains me, because when you've got a job that you're being paid to do, whether you're not motivated that morning or not, you have to go in. So there's no choice. Whereas now I'm like, I could just stay in bed a little bit. And I know I've got to do business development, and I know I've got to do all these different roles. And I think I am being coached at the moment by two amazing women. And it's really interesting being coached by two people. But they've helped me to map out the kind of org chart of my company, which is just me and one other person. But how many roles you actually are fulfilling, which is all of them.
Which is every single one.
Yeah, I think it's just, what are my rhythms, and just relearning all of that stuff. That's been the most fascinating in the last few months, because even as running things as a side hustle, I never gave it all of my heart and all of my energy, of course. So I was just doing it when I could at the weekends, and I wasn't able to do any consultancy for the last couple of years. It's just been the community and the community is just such a joy. So it doesn't feel like work.
It's like a hobby.
Yes, it is.
But that's important. I think that's a really important point, is that you've developed and you've basically sprungboard something that started as a hobby that you saw was missing from the workplace for you.
Yeah.
You were the person to bring that together.
Yeah.
And so that part of it, which I can see brings you so much energy, because you light up as soon as you talk about it and smile and beam away, which is such a joy. That seemed like a really natural transition. And then you've got to plug in the other kind of business parts of it, which is the kind of obviously making sure the consultancy now is working and paying for itself and that kind of stuff, and then developing it from there.
Yeah. I think it's just been something that changed. I don't know if it's turning 50, so I'm putting a lot of weight on turning 50 this year, but it's something has felt different about the energy field that I'm in. Something just feels, oh, this is actually right. And even if I'm not enjoying some parts of it, or it's scary, because there are panic days where I'm like, oh my fucking God, like I don't have a salary coming in at the end of this month, and what am I, those kind of feelings which come up now and again. Yeah, it feels right. It feels like I'm on a path that is meant to be, and I just couldn't feel it before. Maybe it wasn't there before, but I definitely feel like a theme in my life has been to carve my own way, but now it feels, oh yeah, no, this is the way, this is the path. And
you're just describing the feeling when you're aligned with who you are and what you believe in. And so the tough part, which is what I think you're describing, is trusting that you're on the path, that whatever you're doing, even if it's tiny incremental steps forward, like you said, some days you can tear your hair out or be crying because we're having to deal with now IT issues which you never had to worry about, or oh, I've got to find this kind of paperwork, I don't know how to do it, or all of that stuff that we weren't trained to do.
No.
Now becoming the thing we've got to do to make the business tick over. And there are definitely days where you feel lost at sea. But if you can stick to, I know I'm doing something that is important, is a valuable service, makes me feel excited.
Yes.
That we just have to ride it through.
Yeah.
And it will work out.
Yeah. Yeah. That resonates a lot with me. And I think I've also realised the power of one's network and the people that you can rely on there's so many things I don't know. One good example is negotiating for oneself. It is completely different to negotiating in my entire career. All the negotiating scenarios that I've been in, which I've been quite good, I thought, but negotiating for yourself is so much harder. And so I've tapped into people, whether it's mentors that I've sought out or just brilliant people in my network. Can you just help me to advise me on this one thing? And that's also been, even that has felt like, oh yeah, that's just such a great thing to realise that you weren't, of course, like focusing on relationships for the last 20 years. I wasn't doing it for it to come back around, but actually it's just so important, the people that you have around you. And I think that's something that has been quite a way to feel that I have done a good job in the last 20 years. And some of the people that I'm talking about in my network of people that I've worked with, obviously, and that's quite a nice feeling as well.
Do you know, I think it's one of the positives of doing this at midlife. You've had a significant number of years in the workplace. You've built some really valuable relationships with people who are now quite senior.
Yeah.
And although you are doing it as a side hustle, and that's a really good advice for anybody listening, that if they do feel passionate about something, starting to build a community, which could even just be, hey, let's meet for a coffee once every 4 months. If you're frightened to go all out, is that you can create community for nothing. It just requires a bit of effort.
Yes.
And people generally want to be part of a community, particularly if they're going to be able to share ideas, get some support, network.
That's exactly how I felt. And I have been quite intentional, at some point I was anyway, about mapping it out. So who could my go-to people be when these things come up, or when there's something that occurs that I just don't know how to do it, which is happening a lot. Yeah, it's been really
And the same with
helpful.
you. It's not a one-way street, is it? It's an exchange. So you can sit down with somebody and say, hey, can I pick your brains about X, Y, Z?
Yes.
And they can say, oh, actually, I've got this issue at the company. What are your thoughts?
Yeah.
And that's where grown-up exchange takes place.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do feel another thing about growing older, just that feeling of wisdom. And I'm not talking about intellectual wisdom or academia or anything like that, but just the knowing and helping others to come up and things that we've been through. And yeah, I do love that part about midlife.
Yes, we need to celebrate it as much as possible. So I've started these 3 questions as a kind of theme at the end of the show, and they're called the 3, 2, 1s. And we've had so many great pieces of advice from you, and it's been a real joy to speak to you about what you're doing. I can tell how passionate you are. And that just actually is it's a great conversation to have before Christmas, which is when we're recording this. Love and heart and humanity. It couldn't be a better message, could it really? So the 3, 2, 1s are just a few more bits of information, advice, and some of your experience that we can leave behind, put in the show notes, so that other people listening to this can take away what they will.
Okay.
So the 3 things you've invested in that have been worth every penny.
3 things. Definitely my own healing, investing in my own healing, just making sure that I've got money to put to that in whichever, and I know that is quite a privilege, but even if it's something small, investing in that. Gosh, I think my things are going to be all outside of work. Investing in creativity and whatever creative pursuit I've wanted to follow, whether that's dancing or art, I've wanted to learn more about it. And if they're things that I know bring me joy, then that's definitely that I've invested in. It's been worth it. And Fenella has been the best investment for my business for sure, because of her passion, and she's a different generation to me as well, so just learning so much from her. And actually she has helped me to stay away from butterflies and wind chimes and dream catchers, and be like, no, we're luxury, this is what we're appealing to. And yeah, she's been amazing. So yeah, that investment, one of the best.
2 things you wish you could have done differently. Ideally in the sort of setting up of the business.
Okay.
Not in your entire life.
Yes.
I wish I'd not dyed my hair black, pierced my lip.
There's so many things that I can say about my dialect. Things that I wish I'd done differently. I do wish that I'd had a bit more of an understanding about the financials. I wish I'd taught myself a bit more about that at the beginning. It would have just been really helpful. Profit and loss.
Yeah, the basic of accountancy terminology.
Accountancy.
Yeah.
What else I wish I'd done differently? I think I wish I had also set up a process for business development for myself, because business development is not something that I personally enjoy. So I wish I'd thought more about the future business development that I would need and want to have, to bring in. So they're probably the 2 things I would do differently. Setting up a bit more structure for myself, because I don't think I've realised stepping out of the corporate world
How much you have to hustle?
Yeah.
It's real. The hustle is real. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, but I think also because I felt lucky in that business was just coming in and I was getting recommended, and that was fine as a side hustle, but it's not fine to rely on that full time. What
have you found is the most useful tool for you?
I use Trello as a project management tool. That's been really helpful for just tracking everything that we want to do. And if we've got great ideas, which happens every day, but we obviously can't act on all of them, but just capturing those great ideas, because at some point that might become something. And so Trello as a tech tool has really been helpful for that.
That's really interesting, actually, because so a lot of people do work by themselves. So I guess I write notes constantly because my brain is a bit like a sieve these days, unfortunately. And I'm the same. I might have a brilliant idea just before I go to sleep.
Yep.
If I haven't written it down, that idea is whirling around my head because I'm so panicking that I'll forget it. And then I can't sleep. But you're right, tracking great ideas, putting them into action as and when is relevant, is a really great And how else do you drum up business? Is it through the community that you're finding most of the work's coming?
It's LinkedIn and having to create content. It's been another kind of area of growth for me. Creating great content on LinkedIn and just having beautiful decks. So from a marketing perspective, just to be able to reach out to people that are in my inner network at the moment is what we're working on. And just, I figured out the other day that you can actually download all your contacts on LinkedIn, which I didn't yet. And so I've got them.
I didn't know that
Yeah,
either.
I've got them all now in a kind of, it's just in a spreadsheet, but it's like a database for me.
I might get that off you and put it in the show notes because
Yeah,
for a lot
absolutely.
of people that could be absolute gold dust.
Yep.
Can anybody do it? Or
Anyone
just...
can do it. Anyone can do it.
I've literally learned something amazing today. Thank you for that.
I can't think exactly how to do it, so please.
Right
now, but it's really easy.
I'm going to keep hassling you for that because I really want to find out. It's so genius. Wow, okay, that's great. One person you'd like to thank, ideally not a family member, because we know that we always thank them.
Yeah. I have to say that I would really love to thank Fenella. Without her, I don't think the community would exist in the way that it does, and the brand, because what we've created as PeopleFlow, the brand, I feel really proud of, and it does incorporate all the things that I believe in and wanted, and she's been able to make that happen. So I just really want to thank her.
Oh, it's so fantastic. And yeah, she seems like a really great person to have on side. Congratulations, because finding the right people is your skill, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, listen, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate listening to your story and your journey and all your thoughts around what will undoubtedly be an incredible community. I can't imagine anybody not wanting to join it, particularly share ideas and to have support and to focus on their health and well-being. Come on, these people need support.
Yeah.
It's a great idea. Thanks so much for being on the Midlife Entrepreneur.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for tuning into the show. And if you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to click follow on your favourite podcast platform and leave a review. It really helps us reach more listeners just like you. Finally, if you're a midlife entrepreneur with an interesting story to share or would like to nominate a guest, you can do so via my email. It's inquiries@joeglynsmith.com. All information will be in the show notes. See you next time.